sun is racing.
Welcome, race fans, to another episode of the Rubbin' is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. We have all your action for the Coca-Cola 600 from Charlotte Motor Speedway. This is NASCAR's marathon, 400 laps, 600 miles, broke into 4 100-stage laps. Endurance is the key here. We've seen this race dominated 2 years ago by Truex, and last year Austin Dillon stole a win on a pit strategy where he led a total of 2 laps. But the important one, the last one, was one of those that he led.
Due to the long race, so the drivers will obviously have plenty of time to come through the field. This will play huge this week as far as points are concerned due to all the fastest laps led. Average number of cautions here are 7 to 10. Obviously, we're going to have 3 of them. We know that for sure for the breaks. Interesting fact about Charlotte is that this is another 1.5-mile track that has been dominated by Jimmie Johnson. But this week in 2018, with that season that they've been having, starting from the 23rd position.
It's just one of many interesting plays that we'll be talking about throughout the show. The weather this weekend looks to have a slight chance of thunderstorms during this evening Sunday night race, but nothing too much to worry about. We should be able to get all 600 miles in. All right, so Liehr kind of foreshadowed the Jimmie Johnson dilemma. That's not even the big dilemma of the week. The big dilemma of the week is to Harvick or not to Harvick, or to Rowdy or not to Rowdy. Harvick is 12,200 and is starting second to last, 39th. With the historic season Harvick has been having, it is crazy to me to think that people are going to intentionally fade this car this week because of salary. But at the same time, because of salary, you almost need to fade him. It is absolutely crazy. And then you have Rowdy at 11,100 who's sitting on the pole. But traditionally, pole sitters here don't do a whole lot. They lead a few laps, not necessarily enough, and don't necessarily finish where you need them to. Liehr, your thoughts on whether to Harvick or not to Harvick, or to Rowdy or not to Rowdy?
It is definitely a tough decision, my friend, when it comes to figuring up your rosters this week. I mean, having Harvick start from that position in the longest race of the season, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind the guy's going to be in the top 10 before, the first 20 laps are over. The thing with him is it salary worth it, sacrificing that much for him, but then the other guy you have to get way down below to comprehend the two to make him even, to equal out to maybe if you choose 2 other middle guys. But it is a quandary, man, this weekend, and it's going to be interesting to see what his ownership percentage will be. I know I'm definitely going to be playing him for sure. That's obviously a no-brainer. Obviously, going to have exposure on both of these guys this weekend. But Kyle Busch starting from the pole, and Kevin Harvick too, real quick. I mean, guy's going for the sweep of the whole month of May. I mean, the guy's going for 4 wins in a row in the number 4 car. Just unbelievable month for that guy. When it comes to Kyle Busch, Kyle Busch doesn't have a win here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and so obviously he wants to get that monkey off of his back. He's obviously doing double duty starting today with Xfinity. Last time I checked, he was led a bunch of laps, but he did get down in the field there, but don't know what reason because I wasn't watching it. He's definitely a guy that you've got to have exposure on for sure. That car's obviously fast. Do you make a combination of the 2 of them together? 1 and 1? None? I mean, there's so many directions this week. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how the lineups shake out.
Yeah, it's crazy to me to think that if you put the 2 of them on a lineup together, you are spending $23,300, which is almost half of your total salary. That is absolutely absurd. I don't know that I can do it. This week is a little odd. And once you figure out the answer to the Harvick, not to Harvick, to Rowdy, not to Rowdy, I think it's time to Liehr do the honor.
Here's to the crown jewel of the season, baby. Born and rolled for Charlotte Sunday night, Memorial Day weekend, baby! Yeah.
All right, Liehr, who's your driver to burn some rubber this week, buddy?
All right, my man. Well, obviously with all the picks that we have available to us at our fingertips this weekend, I'm going to be going with a guy that I think's got a great chance, an opportunity to be the dominator of dominators this weekend. But I'm going to go with the number 42 team coming off a dominating performance at Kansas. Didn't do so hot with the package last at the All-Star race. But obviously they got penalized back at Kansas for the broken window bracing. But for fantasy owners, obviously his points still counted, and you still got the win. For fantasy purposes, it didn't matter. So this week, Larson is going to be probably an anomaly, in my opinion, due to the fantasy factors this weekend. And I like to just kind of call them fantasy factors because every single week we go into a week and there's going to be factors that we have to consider into we're going to pick our guys or our teams during the weekend. The two main fantasy factors that we've already obviously discussed is the Harvick and the Kyle Busch. But there are so many other factors out there too, especially this week. Prices are very, very top heavy when it comes to salaries. So, but his price this weekend for Kyle Larson is $10,600, which is the fourth highest on the board. He practiced today in the second fastest, right behind Eric Jones, the number 20. And same thing in the 10-lap averages. He's right there again behind Eric Jones. But he starts tomorrow in the 11th position, which gives him an opportunity, obviously, to be a dominator for place differential, get those fastest laps, and then obviously 2 laps led. He's got 9 starts here, 0 wins. He's got 1 top 5 and 3 top 10s. He only has 20 laps led here in his career, which is pretty low, and I think that's going to push a lot of people to not be on him. Plus, with that $10,600 salary, it's going to hinder you this week. His car is fast this week. They're obviously wanting to prove everybody wrong this weekend after the Kansas debacle with the penalty, but also with the Blaney issue getting into him there at Kansas. He's had a chip on his shoulder, and with the other potential drivers in the field, with their salaries and their starting position, to step out and take Larson, own him, as he may come sub 20% due to all those other fantasy factors that we talked about. I'm telling you, man, Kyle Larson is going to be a guy that you're going to want to own on your team this weekend when it comes to tomorrow night. And I know it's going to be a hindrance with salaries, but you got to make it happen.
I understand the Larson play, and I get it, and I like it. My only issue that I'm having this week is when I play Larson, and if I'm playing other guys, what about playing Logano, who ran the most laps in practice and also looked fast? Or Hamlin, who's good here, or Blaney, or Eric Jones, who was the top of the board for 10 lap averages and 15 lap averages. And if he would have ran one more lap, he would have been the top of the 20 lap averages. But thanks to Fox and NASCAR, that is literally the only information we have on 20 lap averages, is that if Eric Jones would have ran one more, he would have been top of the board. I have no idea why in 2018 we can't get practice data disseminated to fans in general. There should be 10-lap data average, 15, 20, 30 if they run it. That data should all be available to everyone. Please, NASCAR, make this data available and make it so we can make this sport even better. I don't understand it, Liehr. But basically what I'm trying to say is there's so many guys I like that have potential to dominate. I'm not even sure I want to play a quote-unquote dominator.
No, I hear you, brother. I mean, it's just where you gotta pick your line and roll with it. You know what I mean? There's no dilly-dallying this week.
No, which is why I went with a different pick than Liehr, saving $1,000. I'm going to tell you to play Boyer, and he might be the most chalk play if people choose to fade Harvick. But once again, I don't know that people are going to choose to fade Harvick, and if they do, Harvick may be less than 20% owned. And that may be crazy. This weekend is just absurd. Boyer looked fast in practice in the 10 laps and 15 lap averages. He and the rest of his team are all great plays. Another great, interesting group of guys for place differential that I'm looking at this weekend is basically all of Team Hendrick. They're really interesting. You've got Elliott and Jimmy Johnson starting 22nd and 23rd, and Bowman starting 27th. They're all above $8,000, though, and that gets incredibly complicated and tough to squeeze those guys into lineups. But some of these guys are going to be on the winning lineups. There has to be room for several of these place differential plays, which when you weigh them out against Harvick, it makes sense to maybe fade. I don't know, man. It is just messy. But all of that said, we haven't even talked about Martin Truex Jr., who has 2 wins here and a third in his last 4 races. And, oh wait, he's only led 716 laps in those 3 finishes. That guy's starting 15th, which is also just an awesome place differential and potential to lead laps. And he also might be under 20% owned because of these salary constraints. This is just absolutely crazy. And if he's criminally under-owned, you may be able to gain on the field by playing Truex. But once again, if you try to squeeze multiple of these 10,000 plus guys into the lineup, it gets tight real quick. Liehr, your thoughts?
Yeah, man. I mean, unbelievable. There's just so many different factors and ways to go this weekend. Just, trying to get those guys like you talked about with those salaries up there and get them in there, it's nearly impossible. As far as the Clint Bowyer play, I think it's an obvious play for most people, starting at that 28th position, but also, too, with his salary this week, it makes him a little difficult to play as well. Just because he's getting towards the higher end of the spectrum there. I do think that, you're like we talked about, you're going to have to pick a guy or two, a strategy or two, and kind of take the hard line with it because there's not much wiggle room this week. And you've got guys that, are starting in higher positions. Like you said, I would like to get maybe a little bit of exposure on, some Chase Elliott or, guys of that magnitude. You can't fit large salaries. It's just impossible. And I think you are going to have to make that hard line between, you may go Harvick and Bowyer, or you may have to make that line and say, okay, I'm just playing Bowyer and then playing guys towards the front. I think I'm going to have exposure both directions, to be quite honest with you. But when it comes to the middle tier guys, it's just hard because with the way the salaries are, it's difficult to get your dominator guys in there that you think are going to dominate, and then also some of these middle tier guys without having to make huge pump plays with the J.J. Yaleys and everything else of the world.
Because of the constraints, it's a great time to talk about value, Liehr. Who are you looking to for some value this week, buddy?
Brother, I'm going to be going with a guy and a team that have been doing okay this season. One of my favorite guys on the circuit, but I'm going to be going with Kasey Kahne in the number 95 of Levine Family Racing Vehicle. That ride, first and foremost, this weekend on this Coca-Cola 600 weekend, and their paint scheme, man, is unbelievable. It's my favorite paint scheme of all the paint schemes, in my opinion. But Kasey Kahne, and this is his best race, and he is definitely showing speed today as well. His cost this week is $6,700, which obviously that is going to be a saver. But, when you're talking about other guys lower than 6K and also huddling, between the 55 and 5,000 mark there, it may get a little bit expensive to try to fit him in there. So it's going to be, like I said, hard to get him in lineups unless you specifically say, okay, I'm going to play Kasey Kahne no matter what happens. I got to stick him in my first, 3 drivers on my lineups. But he's got some pretty good stats here. 28 times he's raced here. He's got 4 wins, 10 top 5s, and 15 top 10s. So more time has he finished with a top 10 finish here. And starting from that 26th position, that's 16 place differential points if he does get a top 10 here. So now I know, obviously, something Poppa's going to bring up is that, well, he's using different equipment, and I get that perspective. A lot of it is the equipment too, but it's also the driver as well. But he was 9th fastest in half hour today, but his 10-lap averages kind of slipped off kind of towards his starting position. But this is my favorite value play of the week because he's probably going to be a lower-owned guy than the tier drivers this week because of the top heavy salaries. He's got a great starting position in the 26th spot. And he's at his home run track, his number 1 track that we race at. So all of those fantasy factors to me equal a recipe goodness as far as Kasey Kahne this weekend.
I mean, Kahne, really, again, dude. Did he look longingly into your eyes and tell you he loved you at Kansas Speedway or something? I'm seriously just trying to figure out your unrequited love for Kasey Kahne. Like, this is a little bit absurd. I'm just playing with you, bro. The real thing is that I actually like this play this week, except for the fact that I think he's going to be over-owned than what you're perceiving. I also think that when we looked at the longer runs of that car today, he was much more in his starting range, not showing any sorts of the signs of the old Kasey Kahne at Charlotte, and that's what bothers me about it. But will I probably have some Kasey Kahne exposure? Probably, as long as I can fit him in salary wise.
I think a lot of that too with his position is going to come with, attrition as well. There's going to be some attrition this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And you segued me perfectly. But all my guys that I'm going to recommend are a little bit cheaper and finish in that same point range. But before I get into those value plays, I think it's really important to talk about those salary constraints that you just brought up. They may have people wanting to play field filler cars. And I call them field filler cars for lack of a better term. They're guys that love to race, and I'm glad they're out there and filling out the field. But let's be honest, those bottom tier cars from basically, say, Landon Castle on down, they're not out there to compete for a win, right? They're out there to log laps and hopefully break out of the bottom 6 positions where they start getting actual real money from NASCAR for finishing. Those guys may be the right play this weekend, one of them. The problem is knowing which one of those guys might be the right play and guessing on which one of those guys' equipment is going to make it. When you increase the length of the race, the guys in poor equipment, the chances of them falling off or having equipment malfunctions dramatically increases every lap. There's some of the times that I'm wanting to make those plays and some of the times I'm not wanting to. I think we needed to talk about that and let you guys understand what you're actually getting into if you play one of those bottom tier cars. As Liehr said, the attrition might make one of those guys a must-own play on the winning lineup if it works out properly with the Harvick play and whatnot. I just don't know that I want to make it. All right, Liehr, go ahead and answer that real quick before I get into my value guide.
To me, to try to avoid anybody from Landon Castle down on the salary list, so you're talking about Landon Castle, Parker Klingerman, who's coming back into NASCAR after being in the booth for so long. But he's starting from the 32nd position. He was up there, 180 with his practice today. So not that far off from Michael McDowell. Obviously, you're going to get some, salary relief when you play the two, but not much. You're only getting $400 and 3 place differential points there. So I don't know if I can stomach putting any of these guys into my lineups except for possibly Landon Castle at that $5,300 price point at the 35th starting position. But all the other guys, Earnhardt, Timmy Hill, Liehr, I'm sure you're going to talk about, but it's just one of those that I can't do it.
No, I understand completely. I think you're actually much better off this week if you can find a little bit more money and play my value play, which is Matty DiBenedetto at 5,700 starting 31st. Or I would even argue you should find even more money and play Allmendinger at 6,400 starting 30th, or even McDowell at 5,600 starting 29th. Those cars are all legit cars that are better than that tier that we just talked about. They're the next tier up. These guys actually have chances to remain on the lead lap if the race breaks the right way. These guys also have the chance to possibly move up through the field at a lot better clip than those other guys. That's why if you can find that money this week, I would strongly urge you to go that way. If not, you can throw darts on those guys. But like I said, from J.J. Yeley all the way up to Landon Castle, it is a dart, depending on whatever, and you are guessing.
No, I love me some Matt DiBenedetto, man. I think the guy's obviously, he's been stepping up his game this year. He's been a pretty consistent fantasy player when it comes to, rosters and also getting him at a, great price point, which this week it's $5,700. But, Matt DiBenedetto has been at least 20 points or higher in his last 4 races, including even a 38 performance at Kansas where he started 37th and finished 22nd. So there's potential there. And obviously at that price point, you want somebody that has a better opportunity or better chance than the other guys at that same area. So I definitely love me some DiBenedetto this weekend for sure, my man. It was a different race package last week, but god dang, Dinger had some speed last week at Charlotte. And to get a guy who's in not the lowest of low equipment, but, a guy that's obviously got some consistent money going towards this team, and with him and Chris Buescher and that JTG Doherty Racing, to get him at 30th position is an awesome play too. I definitely like him. I like the McDowell play. Obviously, Ty Dillon is too high. David Ragan, I may have some David Ragan just because I like the fact that his Front Row Motorsports vehicle's been showing a lot of speed, but today they weren't in the 10 lap averages doing that well. So 19th's a little high in my blood for him. Same thing with Chris Buescher. So I definitely like me some Dinger and some D Burrito this week, the double D package there. I'm going to be all over those two and a combination of some other ones.
And once again, kids, as Liehr showed you, McDowell will probably be the lowest owned of those three. I'm with him. Those two cars are clearly better, in my opinion, than McDowell, but McDowell can also make a great play here. All right, guys that are not going to be good plays this week, as it's time for everybody's favorite segment, Go Into the Garage, where Liehr and I talk trash on drivers, talk trash on DraftKings. Maybe we talk trash on NASCAR. Who knows? Liehr, who are you talking some trash on this week by sending them to the garage?
Man, it pains me to do this. This he's a decent guy. I like his driving skills. He's been doing it for quite a while. Some people don't like him, but that's okay. You can't be loved by everybody. Unfortunately, is the number 2 Brad Keselowski. Kez and the boys in the number 2 garage have really struggled this season. He has obviously no wins. This has been dominated by Harvick and Kyle Busch and a couple other drivers like Truex with wins. But they only have 2 top 5s this whole entire season so far. And we come to a track where he's got some marginal at best success with 17 starts. He's got 1 win, 3 top 5s, and 7 top 10s. That win came in 2013 when they went to the new package there. But since then, he only has 1 top 5 here at Charlotte, and 3 other finishes were 15th or higher. So his cost this week is $9,800, which we know he doesn't have the speed to just go up there from his 5th position tomorrow and take away the lead from Rowdy Busch. He's practiced in the 22nd position today as far as his fastest speed in 1 lap, and was 11th fastest in the 10-lap averages. He's basically an unplayable driver this week based on those fantasy factors that we've talked about all show. And save your money this week and pick someone else. But if you're a risky player, like I know some of you guys are out there, you may want to have a flyer, one play of Brad Keselowski based on his ownership percentage, because I think it's going to be super, super low this weekend, and you don't 100% unequivocally know what's going to happen. I mean, could there be a chance that Brad Keselowski wins? Yeah, I mean, this is the Coca-Cola 600. I mean, we saw Austin Dillon do it last year with the fuel mileage issue. So this is kind of a no-holds-barred race, and anything can go. But if we were going to play this race out 100 times, I mean, probably I would say 5 out of those 100 has Brad Keselowski winning this weekend. So I may take 1 flyer on him, but not much more than that, man.
I really respect your sending Kez to the garage here. I'm not going to be playing any Kez either. I also will probably not be playing Newman or J-Mac. I think they also overqualified and don't look fast. They're also in that group with me. I figured you would go with one of those guys, a little bit more of a softball approach there, but I actually agree with you on the Kez thing. Unless you're trying to be cute and get around what the majority of people are going to do, Kez is a good fade for me, in my opinion.
Well, and it's the money factor too. I mean, $9,800. It's just, you can't take a Rowdy Busch, Kevin Harvick, and then maybe a Jones if you wanted to go that route, and Keselowski. There's just not enough salary this week to do that.
Right, and I would rather have Boyer every day of the week than Kez, where they're starting and what they've done this season. And so I went a little bit different with my going to the garage pick. I went on the value side as somebody that I wanted you guys to be able to avoid. Ty Dillon is the guy I'm sending to the garage at $5,400. The guy's always over-owned because of a certain tout that tells everybody to play him. Ty Dillon qualified 20th. He has only 1 finish better than that this season that's not on a restrictor plate. Charlotte is a place where experience matters. He doesn't have any. In 2 races here, he has finishes of 36th and 27th. That's negative place differential from his starting position. I understand he's cheap, but his cheapness is what's going to drive up the ownership of that, and that certain tout beating the drum to play him, saying that people will not play him because he's starting 20th, which means all those people will play him. I think his ownership percentage is going to be higher than what it should be. I think it's way higher than his potential. And I think at $5,400, he's a value trap that people are going to get caught into. Now, I could be wrong. Weirder things have happened. But I like my position of fading Ty Dillon this weekend and sending him to the garage. Lear, your opinion?
It's a trap! Yeah, I mean, he's $5,400 this week. He's starting from the 20th position. At no time at all during this season has that team showed. Most times they're starting in, 26, 27, 28, maybe 31st every once in a while, but they can't seem to get finishes higher than 25th. It's one of those to where he's starting way too high for me. I know he's a salary reliever, and somebody will probably take him just because it is a different play starting that high. But I just think there's other opportunities there for higher points to be obtained with other drivers, because I just see him not staying in that area. He's going to fall back, and I just can't do it this weekend, my man.
Dude, I would take Matt DiBenedetto straight up versus Ty Dillon. And if you tell me that Matt DiBenedetto gives me an extra 11-plus place differential potential, it's a non-decision in my book. But that's just me.
No, I agree with you.
All right, Liehr, we've got everybody sent to the garage that we don't like this week. Before we wrap up the show, let's do a little. We don't have any house cleaning work since we didn't have a contest last week for the All-Star race. What were your opinions of last week's All-Star race package? The more downforce package, slower racing, but really intense racing. What did you think, buddy?
I thought it was amazing, man. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I kind of wish that the All-Star race was a little bit longer, to be honest with you. I understand why they, make it how many laps that they do, but that's what makes it special. But I think the drivers like the package. I think the fans watched the race like the package. There were tons of lead changes, real close racing, a lot of excitement, and I think it's something that NASCAR should definitely bring back in the future when it comes to this race, but maybe even some alternate races too at some other tracks. I think it would, obviously this is a 1.5 mile track, so maybe incorporate it into some other 1.5 mile tracks. And but I think it was an awesome move by them, and I enjoyed the racing. How about you, brother?
No, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. It was great for TV. I think it would be the resurgence of the sport. The problem I have with it is the problem that the major teams have, is it completely takes away all of their advantage that they've sunk money into, and that's not going to make the Stuart Haas's of the world or the Joe Gibbs of the world happy. And to be honest, that's a fair assessment, because it completely changes the sport, right? If you equalize all the cars like that, then that's fine. That could be what NASCAR is in the future, but that's not what NASCAR has ever been. And to do that now to promote racing, I also think it probably decreases safety. When you have all those cars always running together, you have a higher propensity for accidents. Now, I think that makes for better viewing, a better sport, but it's not technically NASCAR. So I get both sides of the argument. I think that we're going to see more of that aero package, or a little bit of tweak to that aero package next season at a couple of races, and hopefully that will continue this awesome new style of racing that they're doing. But if we're being honest, that's not traditional NASCAR.
Yeah. No, the only thing I was really disappointed about last week was finishing second in the qualifier.
Yeah, you and I have a history of that. So, hopefully we can shirk that off this weekend. And one of us takes down a seat to that live final. That would be amazing. But before we get out of here and wrap up the show completely, we wanted to thank all of those who have served our country and pay respect to those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice and lost their lives, as well. That's what Memorial Day is for. And as I said last year, remember to also thank a veteran this Memorial Day, because in my opinion, we don't honor our veterans enough. Liehr, go ahead and say your thank yous and let's get out of here.
All right, brother. Well, I am so excited to watch this race tomorrow night, Memorial Day weekend. Definitely thank all of our veterans out there that sacrificed their lives for us and our freedoms. And definitely excited to watch this crown jewel race of the 2018 season. And I think it's going to be a fun, interesting race. And I'm hopefully going to win some money this weekend. It's been long overdue. And I am going to say this because I always stand behind if it's a top 10, I will give this away to one of our viewers that comments and likes the show. So make sure you comment and like the show to get your chance to be entered in for that. And then obviously, hopefully, Kasey Kahne will get a top 10. That's how much I believe in the Double K this weekend. But as always, guys, appreciate you watching. Have an awesome Memorial Day weekend. Go grill out something this weekend.
By the way, big action. You need to contact me to get your Kyle Larson signed hero card. If he doesn't claim it, guys, we'll give it away next week. It's going out to one of you. So remember to like, share, subscribe. You guys have a wonderful week. Enjoy it.
Get on it, big action.
Be safe. Have a great weekend, guys.
Have a great weekend, everybody.